just thought rather than be distressed, I thought, gosh, that's interesting. What's this going to be like? And in fact, it felt like quite a relief somehow that suddenly the pressure was off the performing, and I thought, oh, let's see what happens, and let's step into this vacuum. It was like a void, a nothingness, and so I just sat. I did a lot of gardening, like lots of people, but I also found myself listening more and more, just stopping. And wow, what an amazing journey that was! And I expect you all had a similar kind of revelation of the sounds. Does anybody have a particular memory of when the traffic stopped? George is nodding, I think. I can see George. Were you nodding, George, there?
Yeah. Yes, for me, the most noticeable thing was no aircraft going over. I live in a very rural area anyway, so we have had a few less cars, but it was always pretty quiet. But there was always that aircraft noise because we're under the flights from Manchester down south and from coming in from America down to Heathrow. So they're high, but it was beautiful not to have that thrum in the background.
That's a good word for it, isn't it? It's always a sort of droning thrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the words I've been trying to find words to express the feeling and the sensation of suddenly having that change and all the drones vanish. And to my ears, it felt like the pressure had gone. That continual pressure. I mean, sound is pressure. It's airwaves changing pressure on your eardrums, isn't it? And I suddenly felt, wow, liberated from that continuous and not having to deal with it all the time. It was really physical. Yeah, Clive, did you want to say?
I'm going to bring Chris in first, Emma. Then we'll bring Clive in. Okay.
Yes. Hi, Emma.
Hiya.
I think one of the first things I noticed was the lack of traffic noise, and I had carpet fitters in. So if it starts hammering, I'll quickly mute myself. But the other thing I noticed more is the sound of the birds. And I think because there wasn't the traffic pollution and the noise, the sound of the birds, and I did a couple of diaries with just bird sounds on them. And because I thought that's what I wanted the peace and the tranquility. And I live right by the sea, and I love walking to the beach to listen to the sounds of the sea. And because in Eastbourne, it gets really busy with tourists and things, there were no tourists, so it was much quieter. And because I was shielding, I felt able to go out and have those walks and listen to the sea as well and watch the sunrises and things. So those were the things that jumped out at me.
They sound really precious, taking those moments and really making the most of them, because we kind of knew that would be limited, although I hoped it might go on like that.
And I think just to end that I suffer with anxiety and depression, and I found that listening to those sort of sounds took away the anxiety quite quickly. And so when you said you have a quiet night in, that sounds amazing to me.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Clive, do you want to come in?
Yeah, a bit like Chris, it was nice to get out and about and listen to the bird song. It took me back to being a boy, going bird watching, bird nesting, and I was picking up the bird sounds that I hadn't really noticed for years. And it was good for me because I get in a group and the noise and sound is just overwhelming for me. I can't hack it, to be honest. And it was nice to have quiet time. And I had some extra quiet time because I wasn't going out and doing all the things I did, to actually sit with headsets on and listen to my music as well, which was good.
Yeah, what a treat.
Yeah, I almost dread getting back to normal.
Yeah, I recognise that feeling. I did dread. I mean, I thought that the quiet and the stopping of the traffic and the aeroplanes and the general sort of, not just the sound, but the general busyness and the hecticness of life was quite a good lesson, certainly for me, in what we could, in how we could organise ourselves in the world, and especially perhaps in urban and suburban environments. And so I was talking with some friends about this and saying how, for me, the birds were, I felt they were crystal clear. I could hit everything that I was capable of hearing. I could hear in the sounds of the birds, which I realised they're normally really muffled by all the constant other sounds that get in the way. So there's the clarity of it. But when I was talking with friends about it, and this sense of, wow, the amazement at the sounds, I really felt this. My job at the moment, it seems to be to hold the space for this kind of listening and this kind of attention. So I started making pieces out of it. Sort of started composing. Yes, Steve. Hello.
I'm sorry to stop you. We'll probably be a bit like this today. I'll bring people in as they wave their cards.
Yes,
so,
thank you. I don't always see.
And then we'll come back to you. George, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just wanted really to say the other thing. I mean, like Chris, I noticed. Well, I always noticed the bird song because I listen to it a lot, but it's much clearer. On the other hand, when the bird, I mean, it's very, very soon now, towards the end of June, some of the incoming birds will stop singing. And it's already began to tail off a bit. And during the winter, there was long periods of a lot of white noise, just silence, which I found almost disconcerting. I mean, it was nice, but I like to hear something in the background, even if it's just a whispering of the leaves or something. In the winter, no leaves, no birds singing, well, almost. And so I had to get used to a lot of white noise. And I kept on fiddling with my hearing aids because I thought, oh my God, they've stopped working or something. So that was quite disconcerting. I think there is a need to hear something. Otherwise, you're almost, disembodied is the wrong word, but certainly, whatever the word is anyway.
Can I bring Emma, can I bring Joy in, and then Joy probably wants to talk to what George just said, then you can address both. Is that okay? Do you want to come in, Joy?
Yeah, I think I like George was a bit sort of disorientated when it suddenly went so quiet. We live near an airport as well, and we have the air ambulance taking off and all that, and fortunately that wasn't so often, and we had sirens and all that, and they didn't seem to be so often. So it was a bit of a shock, like George, but after a few days I managed to appreciate my waterfall. Somehow that had a soothing of my mind. I didn't necessarily go and sit by it or anything like that, but I could hear it much clearer than I ever could, and that was a helpful noise.
Oh, how lovely! Yeah, thank you for sharing that about the waterfall. That's interesting because I've been noticing a lot of water features as I've been walking around from people's gardens, and I think they were more noticeable because they can be quite similar in sound to the sound of tyre noise on a road, that kind of shh. But just taking away the car noise just revealed the special quality of the water for itself. I've been drawn to it as well. Often it's behind a hedge, you can't see it at all, but I go closer and just have a special moment with the water. Yes.
George, do you want to come in again?
Yeah, I think sound of water, whether it be a stream or a river or a trickle, and even more so with the sea and the waves just lapping up the shore, or even a bit stronger, that is such a powerful archetypal noise. It makes a huge impact on human beings, I think, and is very soothing because it is the natural rhythm of life. And I think the big difference during COVID is that we heard the natural sounds rather than the unnatural sounds. And that was in itself soothing and peaceful.
Yeah, that's right. And I was thinking when you were talking earlier about the being disconcerted by the quiet and how we need noise. And I've certainly noticed how important the wind is. So the wind can stir the leaves, different types of leaves in different trees, or whistling through the whatever it is, through the hedge, or just in your ears. can be a kind of quite a reassuring, an interesting presence in itself, can't it? The character of the wind. Yeah.
So has anybody yet made a symphony of leaves of moving from different trees?
Something that I'm really conscious of. I don't know if anybody has made that piece yet, but
They are. You can do
yeah,
it.
yeah. I've definitely been making sound walks, which are about learning to identify the tree by its sound, either of the wind in its leaves, because every tree has its own sound, but also walking beneath the tree at night, the different things that have been dropped make the ground sound, make your footsteps sound different. So I've also been having fun working out what's the tree by the sound of my footsteps. Lorraine, was it? Lorraine?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's to do with trees, but it's to do with my wind chimes I've got all over the place. It's quite an enchanted garden that I've created now. And the most wonderful thing is to just sit there in all weathers, just listening to the nature planets music. It's just amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah. I heard Nature Planets music there by mistake, and then I realised you said nature playing its music. But I quite like the idea that we can attempt to hear the planets as well. Yeah, I love the way you described having an enchanted garden and spending time there. Yeah, and it is worth doing that, isn't it? I think. Shall I share with you some of the sound walks that I've been composing? So I've been because of our real localism, we were only able to walk very close to our homes, weren't we, last year? And to some extent now. We were walking very close to our home, different routes every day. And I was becoming very aware of how quickly sounds changed from place to place as I moved through them. I'd also spending time with my son, who's 13, and he was really into geocaching. He became really into geocaching. It was fantastic. So we never had a problem leaving the house. And geocaching is where you go to hunt out little things that other people have left in different places. One of the things that was left was within the trunks of a tree not far from my house. So I found myself spending long periods of time waiting while my son was hunting for things in trees and other places. And what do you do when you're waiting and you haven't got much else to do? You find yourself listening. And so I found myself listening from within, in corners of buildings and inside trees and outside trees and all sorts of different places. Just having that time suddenly gave me the idea of composing sound walks. So where I do a walk and I sort of collect the sounds that I hear on my walk. And then I set them down on a piece of paper, on a map actually, with illustrations and text describing what I've found on that walk. And then I make them available to other people. So you could print out my walk and take it with you and do my walk and see what you can hear. And I'm in no illusion that you're going to hear exactly what I've heard, but something of what I hear will resonate with you, I think, when you do them. So I'll share with you, just share my screen now. So I've put some sound walks on a website. So that other people can download them and walk them. And to my great delight, people did. This is just loading. So I'm composing 2 of these sound walks each month for a year. The first I composed was this time last year, called Tree to Tree. And the walk simply goes from a tree in my garden to a tree in Exeter University's campus in opposite side of the valley. So if I just make this a little bit bigger, hopefully you can see. Now, I'm a violinist, as I explained at the beginning. I've never drawn anything. And I've certainly not really done much in the way of writing, proper writing. So all of this was really new. But I think quite a few people took up different things during that period of time last year, didn't they? An opportunity to try different types of activities. So this is the first tree, number 1. And I wrote a little bit of text about what I could hear. Its branches. If it's windy, I said, look up to the high branches and cup your hands behind your ears. Which, if you've never done that, it's really amazing what difference that can make to what you hear. Can you hear the s of the leaves between the sounds of vehicles? And I carried on my walk. And number 2 was the sound of a song thrush that you can often hear. The song is always changing, a bit like someone going through the ringtones on their phone, I think. So I was just trying to find ways of describing the sounds I was hearing so other people could catch them. And then further up, number 3, this very strange looking bird here is partly strange because I'm not very good at drawing, but it is a strange looking bird. It's a great crested grebe. And they're one of the most famous visitors to Exwick, actually. Every year, a pair of great crested grebes can usually be found somewhere on our channel. This year, they have 2 chicks. You might need to hunt the whole length of the channel to find them. And so then I carried on over the level crossing at number 4, and the clatter of the gates and the grumble of the cars. There were some other things I found, like some metal warning signs that jangled in the wind. They were badly fixed on. One clangs and the other jangles. And I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you can see this green character, green person. That's the green man at a crossing. But some of you may know that if you press the button to cross, when the green man goes, there's often a cone just beneath the place where you press the button to cross the road, and the cone rotates. So if you can't see the green man, you can touch the cone and it will tell you. But it also, this particular cone made a kind of gravelly grinding sound as it rotated, which I could hear, and that was quite fun. And then finally, destination was the second tree on my walk. Number 452 has a number on the edge of Exeter University's campus, and I invited people on the sound walk to climb inside the tree, and then if they felt brave, to talk, sing or whisper inside the tree, which has its own acoustic because all the branches cluster around you very close. And I asked people how they would describe it. So that was my first sound walk. And then I'll just cut to one of the most recent ones that I've managed to actually make is a map, which I did the same walk in December. So I was interested when George was talking about the different birds. So the same walk had totally different birds in December than it did in June. And trying to remember which one this is. So it looks a little, it's a black-headed gull at number 3. So there was no song thrush this time, and there was no grebe. And I heard a lot more traffic. Of course, the first tree didn't have any leaves at all on it. So that meant what I heard when I was trying to listen to the tree was not tree, but only traffic. So I was struck by different types of birds, the wing clatter of pigeons and a magpie. And long-tailed tits, they seem to have become very, very present in my listening. So there's a little bit of I guess I got quite cross on this walk with the amount of traffic I could hear, actually. So number 5, I said, vehicles queue or rush through this artery, but their sound clots. While I listened, it never flowed away. So I'm using these, I'm being honest actually when I'm listening. I'm not listening only for nature sounds, I'm listening for any sound and not judging. But I do find it's an opportunity to really, talk about the things that I'm loving and enjoying, but also the things that I'm struggling with accepting the sounds and putting them there as an honest kind of snapshot and picture. So in a way, I feel that what I'm doing is it's not just this is a nice thing to do. It's actually activism. It's about dealing with sound in our habitats and the things that are good and bad about it. Does anybody have any comments about the sound, the good and bad of the sounds in their environments at the moment or in the last year? Steve.
I have to say, I loved your use of the word wing clatter at the pigeons. They're not the most graceful of things, are they?
No, they don't seem to need stealth, do they? They don't mind drawing attention to themselves. I don't know if anybody can explain why they do that. It must be deliberate. I'm sure it's deliberate. Like, so I'm here.
Well, I've heard them described as proud of punch, like a drunk granddad at a wedding, strutting around in his best suit, walking into things. I think we've got Paul and Chris waiting to come in. I think you were first, Chris, then I'll come down to Paul.
Yes, I've noticed that sound travels much further as well. Normally, if somebody's doing any do-it-yourself, it's, if it's next door, you can hear it, but if it's a few houses away, you really can't. But in these quiet times, you can hear this banging and clattering, and even where people are cutting their grass from an awful long distance away. And sometimes I stand up on my patio and look out to see where the sound is coming from, because it sounds so near. And then I realize, well, no, it's not. It's right up at the top of the road that somebody's doing, cutting their grass. And that was amazing, astounding to me that because of the other noise is gone, that you can hear these things from such a distance.
I completely agree, Chris. Yes, my surprise was how my house is a little bit set back from quite a busy main road, and when the cars stopped on the main road, actually, not only could I hear the birds beautifully clearly, but I could also hear people speaking. And I've never thought that the sound of people speaking could be so beautiful, but just the warmth of two humans encountering each other on the road, on the pavement, or over their garden fence in their front garden, and greeting each other, and without any other sound interfering, was magical for me. Yeah. And from up and down the road, people talking, became very intimate and beautiful to me. Yeah.
Paul, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just thinking about things as Emma's talking along there. Yeah, it's I think during the lockdown it become, well, I think most of us walk if possible, but for me the sound of traffic was absolutely horrendous. I don't even walk now on the main road because I can't stand the noise. As George said before, it's not the engines, it's the tires and the constant movement of the I think the horrible sound. But getting back to the quiet side of things, I've noticed myself there's a lot of I noticed more bird song, quite definitely. Noticed the sound of the River Mersey because I walk down, do a coastal walk every day, like so. I think it become more, what's the word? Succinct, is it? I don't know, can't find the words. It come on me a little bit more than normal because of the quietness. So it was more enjoyable anyway. But the thing I can't quite get a grip on this conversation, Emma, is are you recording birds, all these sounds to make something for people with dementia, or is it just a hobby or something? I missed the beginning of the.
Good question. Very good question. Yeah. I'm primarily composing it because I like it. Okay. So I'm doing these walks and experiencing them, and experiencing the sounds. And I'm thinking of it like, I think what I'm coming to realize is that the sound, I like to think of the sounds all around me as music that continues all the time. It's
Well,
always,
it is music, yeah, it's notes, isn't it?
always flows. Yeah, there's rhythm, there's pitches,
Yeah.
there's cycles. Even if we can't quite perceive them, obviously there's the cycles of the day. We've got human cycles of the day of people transport and commuting and schools run, and our cycles, but longer term cycles of the seasons, of course, bring their own musical shape, and the cycles of the weather. So I guess I'm taking a snapshot, making lots of choices and decisions about, because obviously I can't put all the sounds in a sound walk. So I'm doing an edit, I suppose, of what I feel have been the most significant to me on my walk, and I'm offering them to somebody else and saying, here's an experience. Would you like to have this experience? And what I love is when people do take one of my walks and in their hand and do a sound walk. What I love is when they come back to me and say, oh yes, I heard the grebe. I didn't know that was there. Or I didn't hear the grebe. I heard this thing instead. I had a different experience. So I very much love the connection that I'm getting between me and my place, but also with other people.
Yeah.
And even when we can't spend that time, when we were isolating, we couldn't walk together, could we? But we could share an experience.
Yeah, yeah. Just to amplify that little bit, a funny thing, when I was filming with Paul Miles, I've got a terrible leak off my back gutter in my kitchen, and it's loud, you know, it hits, and I put a bucket underneath it because the water was going everywhere. For the first 20 minutes, it was dunk, 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 because it's heavy rain. So I was doing the spoons, hitting the spoons, and I was hitting the tea caddy. And in the end, I was going all around the kitchen, but making it a cross rhythm in time, you know. And I recorded it and it sounded great. You know, it was toasters, refrigerators, everything was. So I called it my little kitchen song,
kitchen song. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I'd just like to draw some parallels, Emma. I mean, you said you've made these sound walks, and people take them on pieces of paper, and then do the walks. But in many ways, many of your diaries are very similar. Lorraine, there was a beautiful diary that you made. I think it was when you went to the park soon after lockdown lifted, and it was a really joyous diary, and you could hear the sounds. You were standing on a bridge, and I heard children running around in the background. I heard ducks quacking and flapping, and the sort of like gentle conversation. It was lovely, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to sort of like bring Emma to meet you, because you're all working within sound, and there's maybe so much more that we could explore. Do you want to come in, Lorraine?
Yeah, it's Caxton Park in Gillingham, Kent. Some of you may know it, but
That's
some
right.
of you not, because you live all different places. But it is so inspirational for me. That's when I can feel a diary coming on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not a song, but a diary coming on, because it's just an amazing place. You see all the wildlife, and I go all through the seasons, and it's also different. Watching the trees, watching the wildlife, seeing what's new. Then in the springtime, you know, the mums with their children splashing in puddles, and it's just wonderful. It's really a lovely little place to be.
And it's beautiful to listen to as well. I'd just like to say a very quick hello to Agnes. It's so nice to see you, Agnes. I didn't think you'd be coming.
No, I've skipped out of that meeting. I feel dead guilty because I really wanted to be here, you know. But anyway, I done what my heart wanted to do, but I'm feeling guilty.
Don't. Well, what you've just to bring you up to speed. That's Emma up the top there. And Emma's a professional musician and composer, but who's been thinking a lot about the sound around us. and has been creating things called sound walks, where she goes around the environment, writing down what she can hear and then sharing it with others to see if they can hear the same thing. Now, what the reason I'm glad Agnes is here, Emma, is because Agnes has written an excellent book about some of the problems that people with dementia experience with sound, particularly a condition called hyperacusis, where everything just kind of rushes in and it all becomes too much. So I'm so pleased to see you here, Agnes, especially after last Friday. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, lovely to have you here, Agnes. Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your book. In fact, I'd like to get hold of your book. Definitely.
You can download it free, Emma. Okay. Yeah, maybe Steve can help you.
I'll link you up, Emma. I think Paul wanted to come in for a sec there.
Oh yeah, it's just that word what he just said there. What was it called when you said everything rushing in?
Yeah, I think.
What's it called?
Are you meaning hyperacusis?
Hyper what?
Right, now, you know the way you're a musician and you talk about acoustics.
Yeah.
Right? So acousis is maybe the adjective, right, of that. Oh. So, and hyper is high. So it's, so when you hear a sound.
Yeah, but what's the word? What's the full word?
Hyperacusis.
Oh, hyperacusis, yeah. Okay.
Right, so what happens is my volume and people like that, to certain sounds that you as a musician, we hear it at a different higher pitch. So it can be painful.
Oh.
You see, Paul. So that is where it is. So that's why Lorraine's walk could be joyous for some people because they're hearing it, and then after 5 or 10 minutes you might get someone with dementia with this hyperacusis, and then they would start having challenging or behavior that challenges because the noise is starting to become painful, and they just, I'm going to call it, act out. Autistic children have this a lot. So you see them in supermarkets and things like that, and you see them throwing a tantrum and pulling and causing, and everybody starts saying, I wish that mother, whatever, would do something about that child. She's a bad mother, a bad parenting, when it's nothing to do with that. And it's lost in the dementia world, you know. A lot of musicians, famous musicians, they have this because it can be a result of being overly exposed to playing, before they understood it, playing music and being in this kind of area, and they didn't know to protect their ears, etc. You know, but that's all I'll say, you know.
And I think we have to blame Chris for that, because apparently it's the horn sections that do the most damage to the other musicians. I'm gonna bring Joy in.
No, it's the trombone section that do the most damage.
Yeah, that's what they say about you. Yeah, it is. I know. I've heard it's the trombones. Do you want to come in, Joy?
Yeah, I just have to go along with everything Agnes has said, and it can feed out as well into just strange noise. Like if my carer is washing up and there's a certain jingle, the times I've told you, you know, leave that till later, it's really doing my head in. And then he wonders why I get all uptight, like throwing me toys out the pram. But there's so many things that affect me like that. And other people just do not comprehend how painful it is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that we can all learn. And I've certainly started thinking that if we think that a lot of our environment is actually composed, it's made, we make it around us. It doesn't just happen. So there's a road there for a reason. There's a junction there for a reason. and there are buildings that are built like this for a reason. We can change all of those things if we want to. If we want to change our environment. So a lot of people are starting to think about, I think it seems a bit odd perhaps to call it a composition, the music that happens all around us, but it is all made. It may have been made a long time ago by people settling in a particular place and a bridge where a river is to be crossed, but it's all been made and therefore it can be remade and improved. And I've often thought if we were to compose our environment around its sound and not just around the way it looks, it could be better for everybody. You think, Agnes?
Feel that it would, what do you see what you're talking about, walking and being more aware of the sounds? I think it would be very good for others to understand. So if they could reflect, I hear the birds, that's beautiful. I would turn around and say, if you can't shut them up tweeting, I'm out of here. Do you know what I mean? But they would get an understanding of what is comfortable for, because we're all individual. We all like different music. We all like different things. And then find out what is personal to you that will bring you comfort, joy and happiness and enjoy your environment. So the more we know about what I'm going to say, excuse my way I put things, of what ticks your box and makes you comfortable, the better it is to enjoy your everyday environment. So if you know that going on the bridge at a certain time of the day is too busy and too noisy, well, just change the time. It doesn't mean to say that you can't enjoy going on this beautiful walk. It just means that everybody needs to be aware that we've all got different challenges, and it might be a time, it might be, you know, the light might affect people's vision and balance. So dementia is more than memory, but we can use what you're doing as long as we've got knowledge and aware. One size doesn't fit all. See, Joy and I would get on perfectly fine because our hyperacusis is so sensitive that we're kind of similar, if you like.
Yeah. And have you developed techniques for managing situations with
well, yes, I think there is that. It's the 4 A's again, you know. You become aware, right? You accept that that is what's happening. You adapt. And if all else fails, bloody avoid it.
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of, and when it was my daughter that came up with that when we were doing the first booklet, and listening to people saying, people with dementia, this is what she picked out when she was transcribing everything, that this is what the collective way of working with it was. But if you're not aware of it, you can't do anything about it. You just act out. You know, and if you don't accept, you expect the world to change to suit you, which ain't going to happen, you know.
Not very quickly, no. Yeah.
I know that Chris has another appointment to go to. I'm just thinking that we should try and maybe give her a little bit of a nudge. I don't want her to be late for Chris.
Oh, that Chris.
Yeah, Chris, I'm just conscious that you said you had another appointment to go to, and you're having a bit of you nodded off for a bit there. I just wanted to make sure you don't miss it.
I did. I'm so sorry.
Oh, where am I?
I've got to take the cat to the vets, but I'm okay for a little while.
Okay.
You make a loud noise if we wake up.
All right. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted Chris to miss anything. And just Agnes, to go back to what you were talking about, I think more and more people are experiencing this loudening of sounds, possibly because, I mean, Gail's recent diary is a really good example of that, how difficult she's finding being in cafes and the sound of knives and forks. But because we've all been in such silence for so long, I think our sensitivity has become so much greater. And now we're going out into the world and everything's just kind of like, so I think your book in particular, I think, is going to be, you know, I think going to be a lot of demand for that because everyone's struggling, including people without dementia.
You're muted, Agnes.
There's a wee bit of that, you know, welcome to our world. Do you feel that, Joy? No harm meant to you, but suck it up because we've been living with it for a lot of years. I'm sorry, but that's the way I am now. That filter, I can't find the nice words, but yes, and I'm glad because now maybe, Emma, back to what you were saying, we created this environment. We didn't create the birds, obviously. I mean, that was someone else, but you know, like that. But there is things that they can do, the professionals can do in design and to take all this into consideration. And maybe now the numbers are getting more, this will happen.
Joy, do you want to come in? Oh, Joy, you want to come in?
Yeah, me, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it all lines up with your first leaflet, Agnes. You know, all the sensory things,
Yeah.
you know, that we talked about in those early days. I think we're just getting to learn to know more about the hyper, what's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really true. And certainly I've noticed since I've been spending a lot of time listening outdoors that, especially when I close my eyes, it's not only the sound which strikes me, it's the sensation on my skin and the smells that I'm noticing. Everything wakes up more and is more present, and that can be really enriching, but it can also be incredibly overwhelming. And I've learned, I started, I didn't think it was a good idea. I thought sound walks really were for me to do on my own and you to do on your own. But somebody said, well, why don't you run some group walks with people? And I thought that was a terrible idea. I didn't want to be with people who were going to interrupt my listening and my special quiet. Actually, I was completely wrong. It's a really wonderful thing to do with a group of people. So I've started leading sound walks together with small groups of people, with maybe just me and one other person or up to 9 other people, so 10 people, moving through space, chatting gently about what we're hearing, but also spending time together, just listening and then sharing what it is we're hearing and the way it makes us feel. And you know, I never know where it's going to go. I've learned a lot about perception through these sound works together, hearing from the wide range of experiences that people have, both from people who are particularly attentive to a particular quality or pitch, and the people who aren't hearing so well, but what they do hear. One woman came, she said, I don't think I'd have a very good experience on a sound walk because one of my ears doesn't work. I hear in mono. And so I had a fascinating journey walking with her. In fact, we composed a sound walk together after that experience, and I've become very interested in making sound walks with people who have different types of perception to my own. I think it's really, we enrich each other's experience by that exchange. We learn a lot, and the whole world gets more interesting in a way, I think. Yeah, so all the senses and perception. Somebody who joined one of my early sound walks, she came because she was interested for herself, but at the end she started saying, well, my son is autistic, and I think some of the things that we're talking about and doing in this sound walk could be really helpful for him, or at least gives them different ways of being in spaces. So sometimes in the sound walks we do cup our ears, so we experiment with what can we change about our hearing, and if you cup your ears, it really makes a dramatic difference. It can be too much. It can make it really overwhelming because it tends to exaggerate the higher frequencies. And so I was with somebody, I said, can you cup your ears and listen to can you hear the highest leaves? You can really hear the leaves in trees when you do that. And he just said, no, I can't do it. It's too much. It's too much sound. It's too overwhelming. So then I said, well, you could cup it the other way. you can hear what's behind you like this. You can change your perception, but also using we could try that in a minute. You can also use your environment in interesting ways to change what you're hearing. So climb inside a tree or put your head within the branches of a tree, and what do the branches and the trunk, what difference does that make? And that's actually a really nice place to be anyway. Or in a building near a road, can you play with the building, stand in different parts of the building, notice how that changes? It can filter out certain sounds and filter in other sounds, and they may or may not be desirable or better or worse, but I think having the ability to know how to move and change within a space and use the structures. If I go on, there's another element that struck me about, particularly because I've been very, very annoyed and cross with the return of the traffic. And it's not only because I'm annoyed by the sound itself, it's also what it represents, because for me, I'm really worried about the climate emergency and biodiversity emergency. And I think if we can't stop driving vehicles that emit carbon dioxide, we're really in trouble. So it kind of, for me, it tells me how difficult it is for us to make proper change, lasting change. But nonetheless, I'm not going to change this instantly. I'm going to have to find a way of accommodating this sound in my environment. So I've made a special point of listening to the traffic. And on my sound walks together, I don't pretend that the traffic's not there. This is my neighbourhood. I live in a suburb. It's going to have traffic. It's going to have difficult places. It's going to have lovely places as well. But these places have got to work for people. We're going to have suburbs aren't going away. In fact, they're getting bigger. More than 50% of the world's population live in cities and suburbs now, and that's only going to go up. So I've been paying attention and listening. I will stand at a roundabout or stand at a junction, and unpleasant as I find it, I'm listening and thinking, well, what is the music here? So I'm applying a musical brain. I'm looking for patterns. I'm noticing how the traffic lights are conductors, actually, and the person who programmed the traffic lights, who did all the timings of when the lights change, is a kind of conductor who is responsible for the rises and falls of the traffic sound as they pass through, the way that the cars move in space from one place to another, the way the sounds merge when they cross over, the different rhythms, different characters. And then I'm talking in really musical language about if you think of, this is a bit extreme, but if you think of a car like a musical instrument, how is this musical instrument being performed? Is this musical instrument being performed like it's part of a symphony blending in? Or is it imposing its sound regardless, over and above and everything? Does it want us to notice it? Some people drive in that way. So I'm finding that this, for myself, now it gets interesting. It's not just, oh, it's traffic. It has detail, it has texture, it has different rhythms and different character. And I find that really, really helpful. But it might seem mad. I don't know what you think.
I was out for a walk, Emma, if it's okay to speak. I was out for a walk yesterday. I've got a walking frame to help me at the moment with my balance, etc. And and I was walking on my own for the first time in about 2 years, and I live near a busy road, but there's a park, but you have to cross the road, But I was walking up the side of this to try and get to the park, and the traffic was loud. The movement almost wanted to pull me onto the road. They were so fast rushing, and it was like a crescendo. And it was as if, the end of maybe a band. Oh, Chris Norris, isn't it? But the thing is there, at the band where they're doing that and they get to a crescendo, and it's almost as if they've lost all melody, and it's just a noise with everything trying to beat one another, and that's what it felt. And I just wanted to sit down on my walker and put my hands over my ears and cry to get away from this awful noise, you know. And I was looking and enjoying all what I was seeing in that. So I didn't realize I was doing what you were talking about. I didn't have the word for the kind of walk I was doing. And I made a conscious decision. This is back to the 4. That'll be an avoidance. If I'm going to the park, so I'm looking and walking to find pleasurable ways to get to areas that's going to be good for me, so that I can get that beautiful sound that's personal to me. You know, I mean, some people love that. It might be called hard rock. I don't know. Paul, you might help me out there where everything is kind of loud and more like that, you know, but that's where I find it. So yes, so that's why I'm very interested in the walks, because if you were a leader of this, you would be responding, you would take, you know, a dialogue with people and then maybe tailor what you're going to do to the person.
Yeah. Yes, one of the walks I did make in November, I composed, I made it with several different autistic people who advised me, and had a fascinating journey with them. And so I composed a special walk, although it was interesting because I feel my practice is activism. I'm not seeking out only the most beautiful, conventionally beautiful. I'm trying to represent in a provocative way, in some ways, why things don't always work. You know why, you know, and so that's part of my practice as a musician is I'm not only making things that make people feel better. I'm also trying to learn and go to the root of problems by exposing them. So the interesting thing about making a sound walk with and for autistic people was I wanted them to be happy and to be able to engage with it and not flee. But I wanted to do it by helping them. I made some choices about things to avoid, but also saying this might be difficult for you here. Here are some options for how you might be able to manage it, but let's still see if we can listen to it. And one of the autistic people who was advising me started talking about this idea of the traffic lights being conductors and conducted and programmed. And so that felt like he was making sense of it in that a very rich way, and bringing other ideas and history into it, which I felt might be helpful for some people in sort of not just running away, but staying with the sound and learning with it a bit. But I know it was a very, and I think largely, in some senses, I failed with that walk. I think inevitably I was going to fail, but it was important to have a go. So we've got a couple of people who've been waving, I think.
I think, Joy, are you leaving? You're off. All right, love. We'll see you tomorrow, eh? Yeah, nice one.
Bye.
Okay, I think Paul wants to come in as well, and then Lorraine.
Oh yeah, just getting back to Agnes and her crescendos. When I was playing in the band, Agnes, I crescendoed for 10 minutes. So you'd have been out the room like a shot.
Is this the horn?
No, I was on the drums.
On the drums, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know there's a piece of music by an American composer called James Tenney called Having Never Written a Note for Percussion? And I'll show you what it is if you read music. It's basically, I'm just drawing it quickly on the paper here. This is the score. It's on a postcard. Having never written a note for percussion, so it's one note, and it starts very, very quiet, and it gets as loud as you possibly can play, and then it gets very, very quiet again. And it doesn't tell you how long this should go on for. Was it that one you were playing, Paul?
something like that.
No, a bit longer, bit longer.
Well,
Yeah.
are you away as well, Lorraine?
Yes, I just want to step in saying bye-bye, everybody. And,
All right.
yeah.
See you tomorrow, eh?
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah. All right then,
Bye-bye.
Lorraine.
I also need to go because the carpet fitters are coming into the room I'm in now.
All right then, Chris. All right.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow,
Bye-bye.
maybe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Just like Agnes said about somebody's got very, very strong bird sounds, and it's not good. And I'll see you tomorrow morning for an hour.
You will. All right then, Wayne.
Talking about the film tomorrow, Steve.
Well, yeah, shall we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Emma.
Okay.
Bye. I know I have very loud bird song. I also have, and I don't tend to hear it now, I have a clock which makes a bird sound on the hour, every hour, a different bird. So you maybe heard that. But yes, I've got sparrows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got that too. House sparrows. They're noisy little things. I was quite interested, Emma. I was reading in one of your sound walks, and I'm thinking about how people like Agnes can take steps maybe to ameliorate the worst effects of background noise when you're in a situation where you can't help it. And you talked, Emma, a lot about moving around a building in order to find the space where sound is at its most comfortable. Have you got any more sort of like tips or thoughts on what to look for in an indoor or an outdoor space if you are being assailed by sound, what you can kind of do to kind of make that more manageable?
Well, I think experiment, and I think a part of the problem is feeling that you're not. It's only going. I think an autistic person told me it was really that being in a situation where that you just didn't know when the sound was going to stop, like this crescendo that Agnes has described so viscerally. The terror that you don't know. They find that as long as they know the limit of the sound, it was somehow better. Like, it doesn't go any louder than that. That's fine. But the potential for things to become bigger and bigger, more overwhelming, is very disconcerting. So I think it's about agency, isn't it? It's about somehow having a bit of control over. So using your hands, but also moving around a building. And I think also I've become increasingly struck by how the overall terrain of a place affects how I'm feeling. So, for example, the second sound walk I made starts in a very big, wide open field where there are people playing games, and you hear their voices in a very large expanse of space. And the end of the walk is in a plaza in Exeter, which is a magnet for lots of people to be in together talking, and it has very hard man-made surfaces, and lots of glass, so hard, flat surfaces. And I felt that all the sounds in that place were very jangly, and didn't go anywhere and didn't escape. And some people love that kind of hubbub of chatting, but I could imagine it could be quite overwhelming. So of the two, I would pick the field. There may be the same number of people there, but their sound is dispersing, and it's mingling with other sounds, and it's not coming back at you immediately. So I think in some ways understanding how sound behaves in your habitat means you can make choices about it. But if you've got to cross a busy road to get to the place you need to be, I'm not sure what you could do about that. So campaign for greater take up of electric vehicles and quieter tires.
Steve, in answer to your question, if it's to do with maybe if you're creating and you've got people with dementia, or you're going to get or passing on information, there is some things that you can do if because it's people with dementia that I've asked how do they deal with it, because more and more it's getting more difficult for me to be at events, so it's the more soft furnishings you can have is the better, because that absorbs the sound. For me, sitting maybe at the back of the room so that the noise seems to be better, you know, or sometimes it's at the front where you're just concentrating on what's being said. And as Emma said, you're trying to keep the back of the noise away. And sometimes I use my hands to direct the noise, the sound. Sit at the end of a table so that you're in control of, if you know it's a meal after the thing, so you're just concentrating on maybe 4 people talking and obliterating the rest of the you know, and try to keep yourself focused on that. Your own footwear and other people's footwear, you know, if it's softer, there's nothing worse than click, 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 you know. The table on hard surfaces, you know, the way a lot of them now have this hard surfaces, but they've got chairs, and people, if it's a cafe, they screech, they never lift the chair, they screech it back and forth. Quite a few times I've suggested to the people owning the restaurant that for a couple of pence they can get little cups for the bottom of the chairs to alleviate that. There are things that can be done, but knowledge is power, and that's what we need. We need to give the people round about who are hosting events and the people who have got this affliction, if you like, or something that they've got to live with, how to adapt so that they do not become isolated. You become isolated because you're deaf, you know, and but you also can become very isolated because of this other, you know, having too much sound. So it is you know, but there's nothing worse than you're having a lovely meal and then someone comes in having a family meal with their children. They're very nice at the beginning and then they're awful towards the end. You just want to wring their bloody neck and say, shut up, I'm eating here. You know, sorry.
I'm going to come back to that in a moment, Agnes. It's something I want to drill down on that. But let's go to Paul next.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Agnes. Music as a whole, and a lot of, you know, food and your senses, all stuff like that, is a very personal issue. I mean, I've been out into Liverpool city centre. You're getting a lift. There's that boom boom music. You go into a restaurant, that's going boom 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 boom. You go into a pub, and in the end, you just go home. Now, the thing is, you have to find your own beauty in life. You have to find your own personal space for that. That's why I listen, like Emma's talking about natural sounds being music, and that's why personally I listen a lot to Debussy and to Vaughan Williams, because even their Greensleeves, his version of Vaughan, and the Lark Ascending, you know that, don't you, Emma? The Lark Ascending, by where he does the violin and the skylark. Fantastic. So I think from my point of view, Emma, would be, if you compose something like that and built those sounds into it, for people who can't go on the walks as well as whatever you're doing, I think that would be nice. I would listen to that definitely in the house, a calm and a nice melody with maybe people's footsteps, this that. I think that would be really nice. It's like if Agnes it doesn't feel comfortable going out, then I think she would quite enjoy that. A little calming session would be lovely.
And I totally agree with what you said. It's almost like at the beginning of it, if you see it as saying, I'm now wanting to invite you to come along in this experience, and seeing it and feeling it in a different way. And then, of course, if you're doing it like, say that, unlike being out in the sound, I can reduce the noise level, the volume, so I can hear it the same way as you hear it, not the loudness that I hear it at. So it's a beautiful thing, and I love it to relearn your brain to understand and see it as music, you know, and it's your choice, as you were saying, Paul, your choice. We all have different taste in music, and depending on how you feel, your taste changes.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes you want music, sometimes to make you cry. You're feeling a bit, you know, when you put a song on and you know it makes you sad and it gives you an excuse to cry. So it's very emotional and emotive, you know.
Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to mention. Like when you hear Greensleeves, you're in the moment. You're actually walking across the field the way he constructs the arrangements and all the strings they go and everything. You're actually walking on the path, and it's fantastic. And of course,
and you know,
sorry, go
the
on.
other thing, Paul and Chris, you are both musicians, right? You know, I get told all my life that I didn't like music. No, I didn't understand it. I didn't have, you know, so I had that, oh, switch that off. I hate that. Do you know what I mean? I didn't understand what I was listening to. And I realized since my dementia that, yeah, I do like music, but my taste in music, and I like music that is that stimulates, and sometimes I can't remember the names of them, but you know the way you hear some of the classical music and it just takes you to, and it's the it's the quality, it's the way they play the violin and all the different things. It just puts you in a beautiful space without understanding it, you know. It just, as you said, like the music that you were talking about, it just soothes you, you know. And there was an experiment done with ice, believe it or not, and this had to do with hydration and various things like that many years ago with this scientist, and it was before I had dementia. And what they done was they were making ice and they played heavy rock music to this ice, you know, the making of this ice. And it came out all jaggedy and all whatever. It was reacting to the sound. And then they done exactly the same thing in the scientific experiment. And they played classical soothing music. And the ice came out beautiful and smooth. So it we do our I think our body chemicals react to the sounds that we're hearing, you know. And that's why sometimes, Emma, they used to say in the mental health world, outside, take a nice walk in the green grass.
You're right what you say, Agnes. It's all in the eye of the beholder or the ear of the beholder. It's like the Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys did I think it was an album of most of his hits, you know, like God Only Knows and Good Vibrations, but everything was slowed down with a massive orchestra, and it sounded so beautiful. You wouldn't even know what it fantastic. You know, but he does pop songs, but when they're slowed down, it really you can see the compositions, how good they are, and the arrangements and all that stuff. But you're right what you say.
I think you and Chris will have it. Well, I don't know about you, Stephen, but I know you are musicians and you will have a better understanding of just how powerful you are as musicians. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know, but do you not feel sometimes as how you're feeling affects how you play the same song? The same composure, because it's almost coming through, you know. And that's why I'm not surprised, Emma, that the autistic children, because of their sensory challenges and sensory overload, not just in sound but in vision and you know where they are in that. And a lot of people with dementia have parts of this, and you know. So yes, environment, stop blaming the people, the children and the people like us. Stop blaming us and stop, close your eyes and just listen and think, is it the environment? How many people are moving in this spot? is there anything we could do as a, I don't know, a shop or what have you? And they have responded, because they've got slow shopping, slow areas, and noise, you know, and they've stopped playing music in a lot of Marks and Spencers because, you know. Oh, and I see, Steve, did you do that after you'd heard, or did you know about that? Tell us about it.
Well, in this shed is where I do Dementia Diaries, and I do quite a lot of music in here. Now it's wooden, so the sound bounces around, but I spent quite a lot of money on, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these dotted around. Now you can do a lot with these. So thinking about your example of the cafe with the screaming children, if more places took attention to what the acoustic qualities of their environment were like, and that's why it's interesting to link up what you were saying, Agnes, with what Emma was saying about being a campaigner. I think so little attention is paid to what environments sound like. And it links in with a piece of work that we're doing with Exeter University. We just started doing with Exeter University, which is looking at green spaces and how to make them more accessible to people with dementia. And I had the idea that rather than sending in people to do audits to see whether the signage is good and there's a toilet, that's important, but also diarists could go in to these places and do an audit of what these places sound like, what they're like to be in from a sonic perspective. Because I think we're missing a huge trick. Because for you, Agnes, that's probably one of the determining things. Whether you go to a place or not will be largely determined by what it sounds like. But there are things we can do. You know, this cost about 40 quid, but they can be made cheaper. And you know, you could even start thinking about, well, actually, from an accessibility point of view, businesses have a right to make them sure they're accessible to people with disabilities. And we should be saying, well, shouldn't you be paying attention to your acoustic environment too? Because if I can do it in a shed with my budget, you know, surely big companies can you know. Anyway, I digress. So what I'm hoping is that as this project with Exeter goes on, we can get diarists thinking more and more about the background sound, which is part of the reason why I brought Emma in. Do you want to come in, Agnes?
Yes, it tickled me that you're doing that, because about 5 years ago when I was going on, I've been going on about this now for about 13 years, but about 5 or 6 years ago, it might be longer now, I was speaking about this, and it was an outdoor place. And I'd been asked to speak, and I was speaking about the noise and the environment and how it might be unpleasant for other people and what they could do. And this boy, and it's nothing to do with him, as a side, he done DJ and things like what you're saying, you know, so he knew about acoustics, and he told me that you can buy rolls of that black that's on the back of your picture kind of thing, and it absorbs sound. And he said, Agnes, if you go into one of these acoustic shops and speak to them, I think they do it in the back of speakers and things like that, you could get that and put it on the back of your pictures in your house, and it will absorb naturally in the house. So I told care homes and everything like that, I said, it doesn't need to cost massive amounts of money, and you don't need to change. It can be still aesthetically pleasing. All you need to do is go to an acoustic shop person, speak to them and say you want rolls of this and you want to stick it in the back of your pictures so that people can have a good experience in your nursing home. So Steve, I would be very interested in being involved or speaking about that, you know, about how we could come up with this, because Emma and Paul and Chris, we need to make it for the comfort of people's homes, right? So that they can do things. So they talk about to see the toilet seat, if you've got vision impairment due to your dementia, put a red toilet seat do color contrast. Well, why can't we look at the sonic and the sound and
Yeah.
talk about behind your pictures, do this,
Yeah.
you know, and investigate it and find out what's the easiest way and how you can do it, you know. And again, to go on walks, Emma, and that, you know, I know that I've spoken in great depth with Wendy and all of that because I've been on doing that, and we can still do it because we can put either noise cancelling headphones or put headphones so that it dulls the noise down so that it suits you. And it's only temporary till you do, you know, you can take it off when the noise stops being bad, you know. So there is things we can do, but let's make it fun, enjoyable, and encourage people to still doing normal, ordinary, everyday activities that they want to do. Don't take the choice away from us.
Well said, Agnes. Chris, do you want to come in?
Yes, I'm going to backtrack by about an hour. I'm back to the walks that you've drawn up. And I wonder whether, like in museums and castles, when you walk around, you can have an audio thing around your neck. And then when you get to point number 3, where you were talking about the Great Grebe or whatever, people can press the button and hear what you heard at that particular time. Do you do your walks like that, or is that a kind of just a weird idea?
That's a really good question, and there are people who do that with sound walks, and in fact it's probably more conventional to do that, to actually use recordings and mediate between the sound and the person by putting it on a device. I have been very resistant to that, actually, because it feels very important to me that what we're doing is actually listening for ourselves in our space and hearing authentically what it is that's around us. And we have a lot that's mediated for us through screens and through devices, and people spend a lot of time with headphones on listening to music and separated from their environments. I know my son does, and I'm dismayed given what I do. He just goes out for a walk on his own and he's on his headphones on and he doesn't hear anything. And I'm primarily interested in reconnecting us with where we are, and partly because because of this experience that we all had last year of reconnecting through the sound when the traffic stopped. And it's keeping that sense of sort of amazement and attention that we can. All we have to do is go out, and this rich world is there. So yeah. Having said that, as a parallel to my sound walks, I have been making recordings myself in my own garden, and what I'm interested in there, I think it's relevant actually, is it's very I've learned that it's been researched, it's been proven that people are happier in environments which are consistent. So if you are in New York, in the middle of Manhattan, and you're not seeing anything green, you're seeing skyscrapers and roads and traffic, and what you hear is traffic and urban sounds, that is easier than being in Exeter, which you see is very green, but what you hear is a very urban environment. So there's a disjunct between what you see and what you hear. And I think this is really, really interesting and worth sort of pursuing, is that sense of how can we be happy in our spaces. There's some geographers at Exeter University who are really interested in this, in composing our environment so that they're consistent, I suppose. And so the pieces that I've made in my garden, I video myself, or I video something like a flower, and that's all I do. I don't edit it. It's just several minutes of focusing on one thing. But the sound I record using binaural headphones. So what you hear is the actual sounds that I'm experiencing in my garden. So you see a beautiful close-up of a flower, but what you hear is traffic, 360 degrees traffic all around me, continually moving. And you might hear the sound of the wind in the trees, and you might hear the sound of a visiting bumblebee, and you might hear the sound of the swifts going over the top. But I suppose what I'm interested in is saying, listen to this sound, listen to this, the actual sound that's around this woman in her garden. I videoed myself picking a row of raspberries. And so I'm in a very small world. It's a little performance piece. It lasts as long as the job, as the task. And I'm recording all the time the sound of the rain. So again, this is sort of campaigning and a bit provocative, and it's not really what it looks like. It looks like it's a nice video of a woman in her garden. But actually, if you listen properly, it's a lot more than that. So yeah, I do use recording in that way, but I'm not necessarily using it to conjure very nice things, because I'm reflecting.
Well, one of the biggest disjuncts that I remember hearing from you, Emma, was you were in your garden, you're recording, and there's the sound of the bees. It was while it was still quiet, the sound of the bees and everything, and then the bomb disposal unit up the road blew up a 1,000 kilo German bomb. And obviously you'd set your record levels to be high enough to capture bees. And it was the most extraordinary sound. And you really got a sense from that I mean, our house we're half a mile away, and our house has got damage to the brickwork. The pressure was amazing. But we've got a few minutes left, Emma. Now I'm conscious that Agnes missed the showing of some of the pictures of your sound walks. Would it be okay, guys, because you've seen this already, if you just showed that briefly again, Emma, just to show Agnes, because they are rather lovely.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. Oh no, not that. This is my notes for my next one. Sorry.
It's all right. That always happens to me as well.
I'm in the middle of making a new one at the moment, as I usually am these days. Oh, here it is. All right, so this is my list of sound walks. I'm composing 2 each month for a year. Well, I'm just about coming up to the anniversary. This is the first one I composed, From Tree to Tree, which goes from a tree in my own garden to a tree the other side of the valley on Exeter University's campus. The first one I made, Agnes. So I'm drawing a map of my walk. I've changed what I do. This is the first I made, and they are evolving as the year goes. So the first tree in my garden is number 1 here. It's a Sophora japonica, and I invite people to look up to the high branches, their hands cupped, to catch the sounds of the leaves, the highest leaves. But I'm also acknowledging that you have to wait there quite a while, because you've got to wait for a gap in the vehicles before you can hear it. Then we went up, and there was a particularly loud song thrush on the occasion that I went, and then some grebe chicks, the sound of the level crossing alarm, which held me up for a while, the sounds of some badly attached signs, rattling metal signs, sound of rotating the cone, the cone underneath a pedestrian crossing button, which rotates so that people who can't see the green man know when to cross, makes a gravelly sound. And then the final destination on this particular walk is this tree, which I invite people to get inside as far as they possibly can, inside its thick trunks, and then maybe even talk or whisper or sing. It's a very, actually something I hadn't mentioned, I think somebody said it a little bit earlier, which was about actually making sound ourselves. We all make sound, we're part of the music. And my recordings, I've discovered I'm always present in them somehow. I always hear something of myself. And in my sound walks, whether they're on these maps or whether I'm running a group sound walk, we often interact with the things we find. So in one of them, in fact, it's if it's this one, but I invite people to just try playing the rugby posts. Here we are, flower pot playing fields. try knocking the rugby posts. There are 4 sets of rugby posts. Sometimes the flags on top of them squeak in the wind. If you knock the posts with your knuckles, I think they all sound the same pitch, but one sounds clearer than the other. So there's a performance piece for me. To my mind, that's a piece of music. You can walk across the field as a group, playing all the rugby posts, and that's the only sound you deliberately make. But we are then joining the habitat sound and playing, being very playful within it. So I'm really encouraging people to do that. The Environment Agency very kindly has put a big floodgate on one of the roads near us, and it's made of horizontal wooden planks. And if you knock them, it's the big xylophone. And so one of the sound walks I do with a group ends at the big xylophone, and we all play the music and we try and find the best sounds. And it's a lot of fun and it's interactive. So it's, in a way, it's sort of acknowledging, you know, we're not just the audience, we're not just observers, we're all in this composition, we're all part of the music, which I think is helpful.
That's a lovely couple of sentences to draw things to a close, and we're all part of this composition, we're all part of the music. Agnes, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just Emma, I've loved everything. I'm really pleased that I skipped my university thing to come here. I can't thank everybody enough. I really like the idea of activism, using what you said as activism to get, I think, what Steve, when you mentioned that Emma done this beautiful piece and she had it up high enough to hear the bee, but then this bomb and it damaged your house and what have you. I almost felt that captured hyperacusis. Do you know what I mean? So I think we could use something like this as activism, you know, to capture in a different way the fact, the sound barrier that Joy, myself, and others are feeling. People that are deaf have it too. You know what I mean? I don't know people who wear hearing aids and that. They get the outside interference, so they're picking up interference that isn't natural to their own body, and they have to adjust in their brain. I think there's a lot can be done with this as well. But my next walk is going to be definitely a sound walk, and I'm having one this afternoon with my walk. I'm getting taught this walk with my support workers, so that will be interesting.
Make a diary, Agnes. Make a diary. Well, because I take the lead for innovations in dementia. I'm in charge of our kind of access stuff, and for years I've focused very much on things like signage and all of that kind of thing. But because I'm also very interested in sound, and because Emma's taught me a lot and you've all taught me a lot, I think it's time we started to do much more work when we do these audits and we campaign on these things, that we got to take the sound into account. And we'll certainly be doing this in our starting off with our work with Exeter University. And so Agnes, it'd be great maybe if you fancy joining the advisory group on that one. That would be quite, you know.
I would love to. I would really love to.
Right, okay, you're on.
Yeah, because I've spent so much of my campaigning dementia years working on there's more to dementia than memory, and the book Talking Sense, because it's the senses, and I think Paul, you spoke about it in that, and so don't what is it, disable us by our environment, and what I'm not asking you to change the environment. I'm asking people, designers, and to be aware that they can be disadvantaging people. I'd love it to be a law, the same way as they do that everybody has to have access for people in what is it, with my walker and various things like that. I would like it to be a law, because I'm being more disadvantaged by the hypersensitivity and my dementia senses and disability. So it really is. So the more ways that we can bring awareness to this. And I think sound walks is a great way of doing it. Gets us outside, makes people aware, and being able to stop, close your eyes and listen. I'll fall over, you know, but maybe I'll need to sit and listen with my walker now because it's affecting my balance. But hey ho, we need to have fun. Have fun. Stop and smell the roses. Right?
I'm gonna go off now and try and find that song thrush. I think, Emma. I think the dogs need a walk. But Emma, thank you so much. It was really lovely way to spend a bit of time, and really think changed the way that I think about all the sounds that go on around me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I'm what I didn't realise when I first had the idea for this last year was that it's going to teach me so much, and I'm learning a great deal from people I'm talking to and listening together with people. It's very, very enriching. So thank you all for sharing so eloquently your journeys in sound with me. It's really appreciated, and it all builds into what we're making together, I think.
Yeah,
that's lovely. Okay, guys. Well, hopefully I'll see. You know, don't forget, Agnes. Every Wednesday we have the Dementia Diaries Zoom. If you're not feeling zoomed out, I send an invitation.
Every day there's 3 and 4, and I want to be outside, you know, so I have to be very, you know, cherry
of course,
picked, you know.
Of course.
But I haven't done a diarist for ages because I think I might have lost not the ability, the aptitude? It's one, maybe Chris or Paul, you'll find the word.
The inclination.
To do it. You know the way I used to just lift it and do it. And now there's a wee bit of me being, oh no, that's stupid. So I'm disempowering myself from doing it, you know. So I need to get back to it, you know.
Well, maybe you and me can have a chat about that separately, Agnes, eh?
I think so, yeah, because I feel as if I'm stopping myself from doing something for a stupid reason, and I don't even know what the stupid reason is. You know.
Let's have a conversation about that. I'll drop you a line and we'll fix a time and we can talk through that.
Okay then. Okay. And I'm looking forward to Paul and Chris, you doing some sort of musical composition on a sound.
Well,
I can feel this, Paul. I can feel the vibrations coming from his brain waves. But he's thinking, he's musically inclined, you know. I can't
all
wait.
In hand, Agnes.
It is all in hand. Chris is currently working on the horn parts for a piece that Paul has written about
really nice,
called "We Are the Storm," about people's, you know, about how people with dementia come together to support each other after diagnosis. It's a great song, and we'll be working on it through the summer and into the autumn, and we can maybe talk some more about that, Chris and Paul, over the next week or so. And Emma, if you wanted to do a little bit of guest violin in there, that would be very welcome as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
All right,
I do love the violin. You know. But yeah, gosh, she's all so talented, you know. But anyway, never mind.
Don't ask Agnes to sing though.
No, but I can talk. No, definitely. Everybody to their talent.
You want none of that seaside malarkey. Do like to be beside the seaside.
Violin's very good as long as you don't have to be there for the first couple of years of when people are learning it. It's like the recorder, isn't it? Yeah, you know, but the violin is like, can be like a creaky door when you're first learning it.
Yeah, it's a very good job Agnes doesn't live next door to me.
Yeah.
But I do have a few very, very squeaky young violin pupils.
Yeah. All right. Do you just give it all your neighbours noise cancelling headphones, or what is it, the ear defenders? I've got them all, ear defenders, and say for the next 2 hours lie down and put these on and there's some chocolates.
What was really good in lockdown was that my new neighbour is she teaches ballroom dancing. Zumba. She's got a Zumba class she leads, and she was doing that on Zoom. So for the first time, I had a neighbour who could give as good as she was receiving And so every Tuesday morning she was doing a Zumba class. I was so happy to receive sound coming back the other way, because I do feel guilty, very responsible about, but I only have 5 pupils at the moment, so I don't think it's not going on all day, every day. It's all right. I think it's just knowing when it's going to happen. That's important.
Yeah, and I think I think that's what it. I think if you share it with your neighbours and what have you, they're acceptable of it, and they'll say, "I'll go shopping now. We know what Emma's up to." Did you see the way? Excuse my Scottishness. Did you see the Wayne's going up there? Come on, let's go to the park.
Yeah, that's exactly exactly the tone around here. Yeah.
But it's lovely seeing you all, really. I'm going to go now because I'm going to have lunch, and then I've got something in the afternoon, and then I've got a walk.
Have a lovely day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for your time. I'll see you all soon.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Right,
Bye for
bye.
now.
Bye now. Bye everyone. Bye.
Lovely.
Oh, what lovely people.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they?
Yeah.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really good, Emma. I think it took us in all sorts of different directions, often at the same time. But that's the nature of the beast with this group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel too diffuse, but yeah, everyone had their thing, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Like.
And I recorded it as well. Are you okay if I publish some of that?
Yeah,
is that all right?
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, I reckon it's amazing.
Yeah, she's a tour de force, is Agnes. She's actually been living with a diagnosis for 15 years now, and she's a good example of what you can do when you stay active, you stay connected.
Yeah, it was interesting. Sorry.
She's also a carer for her husband, who also has dementia.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It
was interesting that I saw 2 replies to your Zoom invitation yesterday, both from people involved with university things. They're obviously very very active with it.
They are.
It's always dementia studies they're involved with. Maybe there are other things as well as being someone with dementia, that people have real lives apart from it as well, clearly. And
an awful lot of that group, they are connected with universities in various ways. I mean, Wayne was a university lecturer. He's now very much focused on dementia, though.
Right.
And don't be put up. The people that were leaving either had other things to do, and others get tired very quickly. We see the same thing happen. We have a weekly meeting with many of those people, and you usually get people leaving at around the sort of like hour mark. And then you're left with 2 or 3 towards the end, because Zooming is quite tiring, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is for all of us. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, thank you, Emma, and I will. This song that Paul's written is Paul's quite a bombastic writer, so it's all kind of like big choirs and big everything all the way through. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lengthen it out a little bit and include a lot of spoken word stuff. So he's written it very much as a standard kind of like bombastic piece of pop rock music, but I want to kind of space it out a little bit and get more, because I love the combination of spoken voice and music, especially with the diaries, because a lot of them have that, obviously have that telephone quality to them, and a bit crackly, overlaid on top of music. It does sound lovely. I mean, it might not quite be your thing musically, but I'm trying to get some real instruments in there, because the producer that was recorded in the studio in Liverpool, and the producer used a lot of quite high-end VSTs, virtual orchestras with different, and they sound sonically, they sound great, they sound spot on, but the performance could benefit from more stuff. So I'm trying to bring, and so Chris is part of it. He's bringing his horn in. We've got a flute, a flautist, an accordionist, and it's just going to be interesting. Anyway, I need to. I've got another one coming up. So Emma, thanks so much. Send me in it. We agreed what you charged, didn't we? I forget
Yes.
what it was now, but yeah, just chuck me an invoice,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I'll get that paid, and I'll hopefully see you soon, under
All right.
Canva.
Lovely.
All right then.
Cheers.
Bye
Bye.
for now.